When you talk about exercise, most people are going to think straight away that you need to go to a gym and lift weights. Today, we are going to talk about movement and functionality in a completely different way. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the Evolving Wellness Podcast. My name is Sarah, and today I have on Erwan LeCorre to talk all about functional movement. Now, he is really the father of functional movement and brought this method to the United States in 2009. He also has a fantastic way of looking at the breath, and we're going to have to record another episode at a later time to talk about that because this one is just packed with information on functional movement and what is missing in most modern exercise and the way that we are training the human body, how that can be flawed and lead to other problems. I'm just going to go ahead and say I think people are not moving it enough, period, that they need to, as a whole, just go outside and take a walk. It's the best place to start. But we're going to talk again about some different flaws and ways that people could improve their health from the standpoint of movement. Now, Erwan LeCorre is very quantum and circadian aligned. I actually found him through some of the quantum circles. And so we definitely see eye to eye on many things. And I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. Make sure to head down to the show notes to check out his links. If you want to follow him, check out his programs. And again, we're going to have to film an entirely separate episode just to talk about breathwork another time. So if you want to see that, make sure if you're on YouTube to leave us a comment and let us know you're interested. And let's go ahead and jump into the conversation. A lot of people are quick to talk about the benefits of sunlight, but what gets often missed in the conversation is the benefit of darkness and the importance of protecting yourself from blue and green light after sunset. That is why I choose Viva Rays as my go-to source for protecting my circadian rhythms. You can use the code YOGI to save 15% off at Viva Rays. Now, you may have seen some of these studies popping up. I call them fear mongering about blue blockers not being effective. And that is a partial truth because when you use blue blockers that are clear or that have not been tested with a spectrometer to actually block what they say they do, they will not protect your circadian rhythms. And they are not catching those key wavelengths that you need to be blocking in order for your body to be able to repair, for you to make melatonin, which is a master antioxidant. And artificial light at night has been in the scientific literature extensively linked to a host of hormonal cancers, obesity, diabetes, and all sorts of metabolic issues. That again is why I choose Viva Rays as my go-to source for protecting my circadian rhythms to allow my body to get adequate darkness at night. You can use the code YOGI to save 15% over at Viva Rays, and you can actually trust that they block the frequencies of light that they say they do. Thanks to Viva Rays for sponsoring today's podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Upgraded Formulas. They have my absolute favorite magnesium. You can get the best and only clinically studied stabilized nano magnesium supplement on the market from Upgraded Formulas using my code YOGI for 10% off. Did you know that magnesium is actually required for over 800 enzymatic reactions in the body? This clinically studied magnesium has proven to improve sleep quality and energy by over 60%, specifically improving light sleep measurement by 90%, REM sleep by 150%, and deep sleep by 250%. That means more energy, better mood, and deeper sleep. Who doesn't want that? What makes this the best on the market? This specific magnesium is nano magnesium, which means it is easier for your body to absorb and use. In fact, it is absorbed up to 99.99%, which means you'll feel the results instantaneously. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Evolving Wellness Podcast. I'm really just happy to have our guest here today, Erwan LeCorre, and I followed him for quite a long time. He is, I guess, kind of called the godfather of natural movement and has done some really beautiful work around the breath. And so we're just hopefully going to be able to have time to discuss all the things today. So, Erwan, thank you so much for being here today.
Good morning, Sarah, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you kind of brought your movement program to the US. Was it in 2009?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we can kind of start there. And I know now you are working a lot with breath, and I find that work very fascinating. So yeah, let's start with the movement program and how that's different from your typical exercise and uh a lot of the things that you'll find out there where people are trying to get in shape and look good.
Okay, well, it's a vast subject, and it's true that I moved to the US back in 2009, so that's now 15 years ago. And back then, I got what's called an O1 visa for extraordinary abilities. So basically, I brought to the United States a different approach of fitness, of
Mm,
physical exercise that it still is based on the idea of natural movement. And the method is called Mov Nat, MOVNAT. We have movnat.com. So Mov Nat is about training people for what I like to call real world physical capability. And natural movement is basically what we all do when we're kids. We jump and land and crawl and roll and hang and climb and do all these instinctive movements.
mm-hmm,
So that's natural movement. That's the natural movement of human beings. So the idea is very simple. Is could this be the way we are meant to actually exercise? That instinct that we all have when we're kids, we remember wanting to vault, wanting to crawl under a table, vault over a couch, hang from whatever we could hang from. And we had to be asked, just don't do this, stop, you're going to hurt yourself. It's in the right place, not the right time. It never is the right place or the right time.
right.
But could that way of moving, that natural, instinctive way of moving, could it be actually a very important drive and not just a drive? It's almost like a program that we all possess and that we're meant to keep doing, to maintain and to develop so
Mm,
that ultimately we can grow up to become grown-ups that are physically trained, physically equipped, physically confident, physically capable, and capable to perform a number of movements in the real world. So that
mm-hmm,
means in nature, natural environments, but in any environment, urban environments, in any situation of life. And so the answer is yes. That's absolutely a legit approach. And MoveNet is the method I've designed to teach this.
mm,
And this is why I came to the United States in 2009, was to teach this approach. And what's different compared to conventional, let's say a gym, typical gym approach, is that with the conventional approach, you'll be probably asked to separate separate muscles, like to target
mm,
specific muscles. Okay, train your upper body, train your lower body, target those specific muscles, make them strong, and then you're going to dissociate and separate strength from, say, cardio, and cardio from mobility or stretching, and everything like that is a little in a box. So you have countless drills because
mm-hmm,
you have to target all these different exercises. With MoveNat, you train natural movement. You train all the abilities that are there already. And the point is what? The point is to become better at those movements, better,
mm,
more technical. So imagine I'm trying to explain to your audience what's different. Um, Imagine that. Well, first off, the goals that you want to achieve is different because you're not just thinking of what your body is going to look like. You're thinking
right.
about what you can do with your body, what your body is able to perform, to become capable of doing in the real world, in the real life. And then, of course, how your body is going to feel, and ultimately how your body is also going to look is going to be an outcome of that. If you want to be able to defend yourself.
Mm.
You're probably going to do some form of martial art. Maybe go to MMA Academy. You will become fit by doing that. You will definitely train your body by doing any kind of martial art. But the mindset is, I want to be capable for reals in the real life. I want to be capable of defending myself if I am physically assaulted.
Mm.
So there's that mindset. And then because of that mindset, the first thing you're going to learn is techniques. You'll learn techniques. You will learn to operate your body in specific ways so that you can be efficient. And as a result, you will also train some physical conditioning by training the movements. So you do jiu-jitsu or karate or something like that. So Mov Nat is the same idea. One is the mindset, the realistic mindset of, I want to be ready to move in the real world
Yes.
with efficiency, with effectiveness and efficiency, and with honoring myself. Therefore, I'm going to learn a number of techniques so that I can become efficient at these movements. And in the process, I will also acquire specific conditioning. So all the workouts are based on those natural movements and are aiming at being as efficient, as technical as possible. And in the process, you become fit as well.
Mm.
That's the idea.
Mm. I love it. It's so funny just watching my son. Well, he's just turned 19 months, so he's a little over a year and a half, and he just has the most perfect form for everything. I kind of watched bodies for many years as a yoga instructor and in gyms, and I'm like, they're just kind of born, some children, I think a lot of them really, until we teach them not to do all the things with this perfect form and functionality. And he's always, like you see, he's trying to climb on top of everything and wants to jump off. And it's it's exhausting, but it's I think we kind of unlearn how to move this way as we are put in school and told we have to sit and be still and stay indoors. And
Yes.
I think it's just to our detriment. His happiest time is outside running barefoot. We spend a great deal of time because we're in Georgia and we can just outside running around barefoot. And it's his favorite thing to do is he likes to take produce out of my cellar and roll it down the hill and chase it. So he does a great Turkish get up, and it's funny that they just know, they instinctively know.
That's the program. They follow the program. It's a
Yeah.
universal drive. It doesn't matter where you are in the world on this planet, what ethnicity, what social status, or whatever. All these differences. What's the same for all human beings and for all children, for all very young human beings in Africa, in America, in Europe, in Asia. They all behave the same. They all are exhausting because they want to move so frequently
Mm-hmm.
with such frequency. It's nonstop almost, except
Mm-hmm.
then they are themselves exhausted and then they sleep and process and wake up with already improved movement and
Mm-hmm.
an even greater desire to go further. There's a reason for that. The reason is instinct.
Mm-hmm.
The reason is um, life is in them and it's very intense in them. And it tells them without hearing words. It's not a verbal instruction. No parent needs to actually teach their children how to move.
Mm-hmm.
All they need to do is to understand that they want to move because they need to move, and they need to move because that is the way that they are going to grow a healthy, functional, and capable body so that they are just fully functional. The
Mm-hmm.
function of a human being is not just to be able to stand and walk. There's much more to it. If you look at other species, all the little baby animals are going through the same that human beings go through, just they are going to do their species specific natural movement. So the species specific natural movement of the eagle is not the same as the dolphins, not the same as the bear, not the same as the wild horse, not the same as the monkey, not the same as the guinea pig. But each species have their own forms of natural movement, and there's of course an overlap. For instance, um, a tiger is able to move on all four, so they walk. They're not just not bipedal, they walk on all four, then they will also sprint, they will also be able to climb, also to balance and jump and land. There's a lot that they do that we do,
Mm-hmm.
just that they do it with a tiger body, we do it with a human body.
Mm.
So why do we all need those movements? Well, because originally we too, human beings, we used to live in nature.
Yes, exactly.
And when you live in nature, there is a number of environments and variables in those environments and challenges in those environments, things to do. You need to climb the tree. The tree is always going to be a different tree. You need to jump from one rock to the next to, I don't know, cross a river. Maybe it's always going to be in the same area. Maybe it will be in different areas, etc., etc. Sometimes you need to hike. Sometimes you need to run. The terrain itself is going to change. So every step is going to be different, etc. So there's going to be a variety of movement. There's going to be a frequency of movement. And there's going to be not just a variety of movement skills, there's going to be a variety of techniques or specific movement patterns within the skill. Then there's going to be a variety of environments where the specific movement is done. So let me give you an example. If you say jumping, okay, so jumping is a skill, it's an ability, the ability to go airborne, propel yourself in the air, not touch the ground for some time, and then land. Now, there are how many ways to do this? There's a diversity of ways to jump, and there are a diversity of ways to land. So not only there's a diversity of ways to jump with two legs, one leg, with momentum, no momentum. Maybe there's going to be a vaulting movement where at some point while you are airborne, you touch the surface and then bounce off of it. And then also the landing can be on all fours, can be on two legs, can be on one foot, can be, and then a different height, different depth, different length, and then a different surfaces where you throw the or launch the jumps, and different surfaces where you land. It's a lot of differences.
Mm.
So imagine if your fitness program does not imply any form of jumping. That's a lot that's missing, or any form of hanging or climbing, or it will, but let's say your jumping is going to be just jumping on the spot.
Mm. Not trying to travel
Right?
anywhere with the jump.
Yes, and saying,
Yeah.
well, that's good for plyometrics. So we've got the plyometrics down. Okay.
What good is
Well,
that? What's
does
the
that,
purpose?
I don't, does that prepare you? Does that
Right.
make you capable?
Right.
Not just in terms of the motor control, the technicality of it, but also in terms of conditioning
Mm-hmm.
for any kind of jumping situation. No, it doesn't. It obviously doesn't. So now the next question is, are you okay with that or not?
Mm.
If you're okay with that, that means that you're okay with a physical training that is very limited, And the goals of it are probably not what you think they are, or they are exactly what you think they are. Means you're looking more at the image
It's aesthetic.
more than the function,
Right.
or you're looking at only an aspect of function, an aspect of like a tiny part of, say, what it is to have your legs ready or fit, or your shoulders, or your whatever.
Mhm.
Even if you do going further with that idea, because it's actually essential. So
Mhm.
what do you want to be ready for? That's the big question. What do you
Yeah.
want to be ready for? What do you exercise for?
Right.
What's the goal? What do you expect from your exercise?
Right.
Most people really, and that's okay, but they want the image.
Exactly. But what happens when you have a certain image, but you break your hip or, like
Yeah.
I think a lot of my listeners, they're in their 40s or so. And so I'm hoping, and because I know I'm thinking of, wow, I've got this crazy little boy that he's like a little wind up toy. You just put him down and he just goes. And I don't see it getting any easier. I have to keep up with him and I want to be strong as I
Yes.
age. I want to be functional as I get older, into my 60s and 70s and beyond. I don't want to be feeble and hunched over. Like, sure, I'd like to look good, but what's the functionality of looking good if you aren't strong and you can't get around, if you can't get around?
Yes, exactly. So you're thinking function. You're
Mm-hmm.
thinking, how will my body, what will I be able to
To
do with my
do.
body? And you're also thinking of, wait, the what my body is going to be able to do in 10 years or in 20 years, in 30 years, which is when it will matter the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because for now, it's still young. There's still a
Mm-hmm.
lot you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But you may have noticed already a number of limitations that you didn't have before.
Mm-hmm.
That can be as simple as, oh, my deep squat is not as comfortable as it used to be. Or
Mm-hmm.
and when I say you, talking about anybody who's listening, oh, I actually cannot hold a deep squat. I cannot stay in that position. Or, oh, I cannot actually sit on the ground or get
Mm-hmm.
down to
Get
the
up.
ground and back without
Mm-hmm.
feeling uncomfortable, stiff, and off balance.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say about your function? And how would you not expect that it's just going to get worse?
Mm-hmm.
Which means that with every year passing by, you will have less and less of those abilities, less and less comfort, and therefore less and less confidence. Therefore, you will do these movements less and less, or maybe not at all any longer, which means that what is left for you but just to literally sit on a chair or on a couch?
Yeah.
That's a dramatic reduction of function, which means a drastic reduction of what we call movement,
Mm-hmm.
freedom of movement. Your freedom of movement is going away because you're not using it, and therefore you're losing it. It's really very simple. So the way you will be able to enjoy or not enjoy your body in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, this is something you're taking care of right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not taking care of it, then it's not going to improve. So we could think of just that to begin with. Natural movement, that idea of being able to do with ease, with comfort, all the movements that we once were able to do as kids or as teenagers or young adults, and then not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We're not even talking about jumping and landing and climbing and lifting heavy things. No, we're just talking about that level of function. Well, does it matter to you or not?
I, Definitely to me. I mean, I've unfortunately my mother has had poor health since I was about 18, and now she has one leg and she's in a wheelchair. She's had so
Oh,
many horrible things go on with her health. And I'll tell you, it's not a good quality of life. We live about a mile away from her, so we can go help her, and she'll fall and have the fire department come and pick her up, and it's very sad, and she's it's sad because she just doesn't have much quality of life because she's lost her ability to do very basic things because of years of illness. And so that definitely opens my eyes up a lot to wanting to, it's everyone's obsessed with like, you have to build all this muscle, and muscle is the organ of longevity, and muscle, and build muscle mass. And I'm like, I think that yes, we want to be strong, but having like a ridiculous amount of muscle all over the body, I kind of question that a little bit. So
There's a balance to be found.
yeah.
You may have great muscle mass,
Hmm.
but that alone is not sufficient to ensure health, because health is more than just muscular strength or mass.
Mm-hmm.
And it does matter to health, but so does energy systems, breathing,
Oh yeah.
uh, metabolism, so you could have a bodybuilding type of body that looks good on the paper or in the mirror, but if you cannot move with ease, if you're stiff, if you have injuries because of that specific training, if your circadian rhythms are completely off, there are so many aspects of what is a healthy body, what is
Yes.
healthy function. There's much more than just one aspect.
Yeah.
Similarly, we could say, hey, flexibility, mobility
Hmm.
is not the end all and be all
Agree.
either. You
Right.
also want to be strong. You want to
Right.
be able to also have strong legs, strong core, strong muscles. You need to be able to lift some loads and carry some loads, or just lift and move your own body.
Hmm.
When it comes to that, could be running and jumping and landing or climbing, you bet that you need strength. So strength does matter a lot.
Hmm.
Coordination, balance, all these qualities, breathing, uh, cardiovascular, uh, conditioning, everything matters.
Yeah.
So
It's all.
we live in a time where it's easy to compartmentalize,
Hmm.
and it's true, it's convenient to expect that if you take care of that one compartment, then that one compartment, that's it. You've got the basics taken care of. You do enough, and you're better off than most people who do not do anything about their health.
Yeah.
It's true, you're better off than those who don't do anything about their health.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you've got everything covered.
Right.
And so, a great advantage with the practice of natural movement is that in one session, a few minutes, you can do such a variety of movements that you have pretty much all of your function covered. You have all those diverse ranges of motions, the coordination and balance that goes with it. Let's say if uh, you do a bit of jogging, a bit of running, and then you move on all fours, and then you're going to have some obstacles you jump over. You're going to step over something or under something or through something. You're going to lift and carry something. You're going to do a bit of all of that. It doesn't take necessarily a lot of space. It doesn't take a lot of equipment. If any particular equipment that you need to buy, you can do that with very simple elements. We've been teaching people how to do that forever, and you feel great, and it feels like when you were a kid, except that you're doing that with a little more, let's say, mindful intention and technique.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes you feel amazing. Then you'll have to wonder, oh, what is this exercise for? what muscles are being targeted or anything like that. You just you think movement. It's a movement mindset.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, movement could mean anything. If you do Tai Chi, that's movement. After all, even if you do bodybuilding, that's movement too.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
very linear, segmental movement. So movement could be anything. You're like this with your arms and you're dancing. That's movement.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say if you think the way, how would you train a tiger? How would you train a wild horse? Well, they would need to do mostly the movements that they do in nature. So it's the same for human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And human beings can create endless movements, but the fundamental movements are exactly those movements that you see young kids do
Mm-hmm.
all the time, whenever they are free to do it, everywhere, anywhere, anytime, and anywhere on the planet. Again, that they are in a little village in Africa, in a big city in Asia, they'll go to parks, and what are they going to do? Hang and climb and
Mm-hmm.
jump and land
Mm-hmm.
and crawl and step and run and
Mm-hmm.
always and do that and do that and do it. All of them. They're not doing push-ups. They're not doing abs. They're not doing yoga. They're not doing tai chi unless they are taught and shown to do that and
Mm-hmm.
asked to do that. So they're in a class. They're in a program that tells them, "Hey, forget about your natural movement. Do this instead."
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what kids spontaneously want to do. What they
No.
want to do is the program, the natural movement program.
Oh yeah.
So what
It's
about us, grown-ups? Are we too old for it? No. Or is it irrelevant for us? No, it's actually still completely irrelevant to us if we physically behave in
mm-hmm.
those ways. Crawling, rolling on our back, getting up, getting down. There are so many ways to do that. Well, we're going to reignite, to revive functions that have gone dormant. They haven't disappeared. They
Mm-hmm.
were there since the beginning and they still are there. But they may be limited because of inertia, because of basically being neglected, forgotten, because we're so busy with our
Mm-hmm.
lives as adults, or because we think we know better.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's the proper way to exercise, is to do those push-ups and crunches, or go to the gym, use these exercise machines, or do yoga, or do this, or do that. That's okay. It's physical activity, and physical activity is great, especially in today's world where most people do not have physical
Right.
activity. But what about our fundamentals, our essentials? The actual movement that we as human beings are meant to do. So, do you take a wild animal and you put them in a gym or give them that program and say, you must do this. That's for your upper body, that's for your lower body, that's for your strength, that's for your mobility. That would make no sense.
No.
So the big question here, the elephant in the room is, why on earth should it be any different for us humans?
Right.
Why is it that we can't see that's right before our eyes and that we cannot trust and value anymore? Why do we not trust and value our human natural movement anymore? What made us forget it? What made us neglect it? What made us underestimate?
Yeah. I
Why?
think it's our natural world, the environments that we're all in with jobs and society and having to look a certain way is what is the right way to do. And, sitting indoors under lights all day and never going outside. And it's just the way that we're, like you said, from a young age, that's kind of like what they do with children. And I mean, there was another baby over here this weekend that was similar to my son's age. And my son, I've been very lucky that I have the means to keep him home with me. He doesn't go to daycare or anything, trying to keep it that way. And the other baby is in a daycare situation and has been raised a bit differently than my son, with medical interventions and things like that. And there were a good friend of mine is here, and she was kind of looking at the two of them, and she said, "I don't want to say anything, but your son is 8 months younger than that other baby, but I never would have known it to watch the two to compare the way that they move and the way that they are doing things." She's like, "Your son is just like leaps and bounds ahead of this other baby." I'm like, "Well, that other baby, unfortunately, the parents don't have the money to stay home with the child, and the baby's in daycare, and they've kind of just gone through. This is what society says you do with a baby when it's born. This is what society says you feed a baby, And my son eats, he was eating filet mignon and
Yes.
chicken off the bone. And they're like, what? Isn't he going to choke? Isn't he going to choke eating that big piece of meat? And I was like, he's been doing that since he was 6 months old, you know? So it's a whole, we've just been taught, I think, that this is what you do with a baby and this is what you do with a child. And you put them in these institutions and you keep them in these environments. And that just has continued into adulthood. And we're sicker and more depressed than ever, I think.
Yeah.
And everyone says, oh, it's because of the food and this. And I'm like, it's all of it. It's the food, it's the medical interventions, it's the environment, and it's the way that we're restricting movement to tell a child to sit in a desk all day and to use an iPad at school, and all these things that are just so normal in our society. And I think it's really to everyone's detriment, honestly.
Yes. So that's the explanation indeed, and so it's a cultural explanation and how what we call normalcy, what's normal to do, what's how it is normal to live in
Mm-hmm.
every aspect, what we eat, where we live, what we do, how we occupy ourselves.
Right.
Um, Aspects of these so-called normalcy can be questioned, should be questioned,
Yes.
especially when we observe what's the impact
On the
on
child.
our physicality, on
Yeah.
our mood, on our health, on our function. That is
Yeah.
actually that impact being detrimental.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's not about changing everything overnight, but certainly we can start to question. And there are some changes that can be done. They are not necessarily difficult. They are not difficult. But we need to be informed about it. We need to be informed of why a certain way to do is beneficial as opposed to a conventional way to do something that is detrimental. Like you told about, mentioned, for instance, the difference between a kid eating real food, like real meat, as opposed to some form of a puree
Mm-hmm.
made in some factory and you barely know what are the ingredients in it.
Right. And cereal puffs and
Yes,
crackers, and
yes.
never had crackers before.
So kids don't get to chew. It's detrimental to their dental and facial development.
Mm-hmm.
You also have all the hidden ingredients in those products that are harmful, etc., etc. So that's one example. One example. We could look at the whole lifestyle and say, okay, this is detrimental, this is detrimental,
Mm-hmm.
this is detrimental, this is detrimental. But most people, they're like, my God, that's way too much. I cannot change all of that. I'm already so busy and stressed. I like sleep. It takes some, you have, you need a drive. You want to be motivated to
Mm-hmm.
improve your quality of life,
Yeah.
to find in you the determination or the desire and then the energy and the consistency to do it for yourself, for your children, for your family. That is
Yeah.
a big question. That is a big question because not everybody wants to do it. Not everybody wants to even think about it. And
Mm-mm.
that is okay. I mean, it's that the pursuit of happiness is done in diverse ways. But if you do want to improve your life, you must address your lifestyle and improve your lifestyle, and then commit to those changes until those changes are not changes anymore, but just your new way of living.
Mm-mm.
So that involves, well, in this particular case, we're talking about our physical behavior. So when people think about that, they think, oh, you mean fitness, you mean exercise. So yeah, that can be, we can say fitness, exercise, physical activity, workouts. Okay, those are words. Let's talk about physical behavior. How your body, what is your body doing on a day-to-day basis? If you pay attention to it, once you wake up after, so you've slept for a few hours, several hours, then you wake up, you're going to be awake all day. In what way or what ways is your body behaving? In simple words, what's your body doing? Okay. Well, if you observe most people's physical behavior, if you were to film it and then accelerate it and make, let's say, 16 hours of wake time last 5 minutes of video, how much movement would
Mm.
be in there?
Yeah,
Probably not that much,
not that
because
much.
we wake up, we stand, we walk a few steps, we go eat somewhere, maybe at home, so we sit and eat and drink, and then we're going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, people work sitting
Mm-hmm.
or standing. Then we maybe they commute, which is more sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go to a desk,
And sit.
more sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Commute back, sitting. There will be maybe a few pauses where you stand up, walk a few steps, or stand, and then go back to your seat.
Mm-hmm.
Once you go back home, you're tired because you worked all day. And what do? You need to rest. So you're gonna probably sit on a couch,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go to bed, where you will lie down. Okay. And then you don't have any other physical activity. But if you do, maybe it will be going to the gym three
Mm-hmm.
times a week. But probably those 3 times a week, most of the time will be 2 times or even 1 time a week. And when you go to the gym, what are you going to do? You're going to use exercise machines where you will sit,
Sit.
or maybe it'll be some standing exercises.
Right.
Okay, so then there will be a bit more variety of movement, maybe a bit more of intensity of movement, a bit more effort. But if you add all these hours of wake time, 7 days a week, multiplied by, I don't know, 16 hours of wake time a day, what's the percentage of that time that is not spent sitting or standing or just walking a few steps?
Right.
Very little
Yep.
percentage of doing any other movements.
Yeah.
So what do you think this is doing to your body? How do you expect that you're not going to massively lose
Atrophy, right? Yeah.
function because you never deep squat, you never kneel, you never like hang, you never run, there's no intensity, there's no frequency of movement, there's no variety of movement, there's no variability of movement. And not only that movement frequency and variety is missing, on top of that, the very little movement that you do, even say walking, you're going to walk with your shoes on, and you're going to walk on flat, stable, predictable
Mm-hmm.
surfaces. So you're
Mm-hmm.
not even going to be walking as in like hiking in the woods, having to step on different surfaces, and your
Roots. Yep.
ankle, feet, everything has to adapt and stay pliable and strong. No. And when you sit, are you sitting on the floor? No, you're not. Sitting on a chair. So your hips are elevated, your legs are below your hips, and probably you don't really have a great posture,
Mhm.
and probably you're not really breathing deep, etc., etc. And probably you're stressing on things, you're just thinking. And okay, this is an observation, right? The point is not to make anybody feel bad about that in the sense of, oh my God, I don't want to overwhelm anyone. I just want to
It's an awareness, right?
bring an awareness, bring an
Yeah.
observation that has relevance, that is valid. Okay, this is a very typical movement behavior of a day-to-day lifestyle of pretty much everybody.
Hmm.
What's the impact of that on your body? It's very detrimental
Yeah.
because a lot is missing. So what is the solution? Well, there are so many movements you could do right there where you are, where I am here, or outside in a backyard, on the
Hmm.
playground, at the park, in nature. So many movements, and that's what we teach it. So we call that natural movement, and the method is called Mov Nat. And we're going to teach you techniques that you can practice to make a movement efficient. But number one is just move more. You just move more. Don't just sit and stand and walk a few steps all day and only do that. You've got to find ways to enrich and increase your movement behavior on a day-to-day basis. And so you could wash or brush your teeth while you do a deep squat.
Mm.
When you walk, you could walk pretending you're balancing, lifting your heels, walking on the ball of your feet. It's going to strengthen your feet. Um, when you start, when you remember those options and those possibilities, then you're not waiting for movement opportunities. You're not waiting for opportunities that life is going to give you movement task because it's not going to happen. You
Right.
can literally do nothing just with a few clicks, order a pizza, and you don't need to move much. Probably certainly much more as a mom,
Hmm.
because I'm a father too. My kids, I remember when they were little boys, it was much more demanding movement was because I was always around to pick them up and
Hmm.
etc. But yeah, there's not much to do unless you create the opportunities for movement. So it's a mindset.
It
Yeah,
is.
you start with a mindset.
Yeah. And I think it's much more fun. I don't know. I'm still kind of on the other end of having a baby and just trying to get myself back. I think it takes about 2 years for your body to fully recover from pregnancy and birth and breast, all the things, you know? And I'm like, I'm going to start lifting weights again. I'm going to do it. And I just can't, it's just, I want to do something that's a little bit more fun and more functional. And I look like I'm in good shape when I'm just, all that I'm doing is running up and down the stairs, chasing my son, pulling him off the stairs, trying to get him to stop jumping off of furniture. And I'm just squatting down, picking him up. And everyone's like, how did you get abs? I'm like, what kind of gym workouts are you doing? I'm like, it's called my 19-month-old son. And just running after him all day long. That's my fitness routine right now. So something to be said for that natural movement. Definitely.
Yeah, you could also partake. You could also be with him and do all the movements he does and follow the leader. And in that case, the leader is him. And that probably would be a great surprise to him, and he would be delighted.
Yeah, I've been standing on my hands in the backyard and he thinks it's amazing and he's been trying to do he tries to
That's
do
great.
it. He can't quite do that, but
That's
I've
great.
I've brought my handstand back. I forgot that I could do that and he thinks it's fantastic. So that's been my workout routine. So I'll have to definitely check into Move Nat and I'll have the link in the show notes for anyone who is interested in it. And I know my partner, Carrie Bennett, and I are going to have another health transformation summit this fall. We haven't really announced it yet, but you're
Oh,
on our.
nice. I love Gary's work.
Oh, you do? Yeah. We have a podcast together too, called
I
Quantum
didn't know that.
Conversations. Yeah. It's like just chat about all the things quantum and circadian.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun. But yeah, we're going to have another summit and we have you on the top of our list to be hopefully a guest to talk about movement and breath. So we'll make sure all the listeners know to watch out for that and talk about that for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I'm happy
wonderful.
to.
Well, if anyone's just driving along and they're like, okay, I'm interested, I need to go find Erwin's work, what is the best way for them to find it?
Oh, well, there are two places where you can learn about my work. So there's movnat.com. That's MOVNAT, MOVNAT.com. That's a website where we talk about teach natural movement. And on that website, you can find either we have a number of e-courses and also what we call the MovNat Online Academy, which gives you a membership access to all our e-courses. So that's dozens of hours of video content where you can learn all these movements, all the techniques, and we have also programs. Some are specific for particular skills. Others are specific for, okay, you want more mobility or want more metabolic conditioning. And we also we have a certification. So you can learn how to teach this.
Mm,
But we have those workshops around the world. And we also have the option, you have the option to come and train with us, even if you are not a candidate to becoming certified. So you will learn all the same and train all the same, except you don't intend to become a certified trainer. So that's movnat.com. And also you mentioned my work with Breathwork and Breath Hold Work. Actually, the
mm,
website is called breathholdwork.com. And I teach a very unique form of meditation
mm,
where I teach people how to hold their breath, or I teach people how to hold their breath thanks to the meditation, or to meditate thanks to holding their breath. And
mm,
also, the fundamental or the foundation of this is I teach people how to breathe
mm,
also. And most importantly, to breathe nasally, to breathe diaphragmatically, to breathe slowly. And then they start to hold their breath. It's a gentle, progressive approach. And why the meditation? It's because obviously anyone who's ever tried to hold a breath realize very quickly, goodness, that's very hard, that's very unpleasant. And then my mind is running wild with negativity. So how could you even meditate through that? Well, precisely, that's the purpose of my method, which actually wants to learn what's going on with the mind and how to regulate your own mind, then you can regulate yourself, your mental and emotional response to the temporary stress that you create while holding your breath. And so that makes it a very unique and also very potent meditation.
mm,
Um, you know, a lot of people could use, let's say, some insight about their own mind. What is the mind? What is consciousness? Why do we think? What's going on with my thinking? How can I regulate that? I could certainly use some tools to maybe think less or to think a little more slowly sometimes, or to not be cluttered with my thoughts, to make them more pleasant, more positive. Um, I think a lot of people would love that and could use that. And a lot of people also have tried meditation, say it's not for me, doesn't work. I was asked to observe my thoughts. Before I knew it, I was just thinking normally. Well, my method really helps with that
Mm.
because we're not just going to observe our thoughts. We're going to actually understand what thinking is, what's the goal of thinking, why thinking matters, but how we can mindfully change the way we think. And it's just like exercising of the body. You exercise the mind, so you have diversity of exercises that you can do, because the same way when you exercise your body, then the body will change. It will transform, it will improve, will get stronger, more pliable. I mean, there will be physical changes in your body when you
Mm.
exercise. What about exercising the mind?
Mm.
Same. The mind that you exercise will generate changes in the brain. So you can make your thinking more clear. You can make your thinking slower in a good sense, um, more composed, more clear, more positive. If you exercise your mind that way, that can change, biochemically in your neurology, in the tissues of your brain. You can induce changes that will make those positive changes permanent.
Mm.
That's a good thing.
It's a very good thing. And I think it enables you to be more enough to move the right way and be more receptive to kind of these natural ways of living and it not to be some huge obstacle. Because I think a lot of people hear the things I talk about or Carrie talks about with circadian rhythms and just kind of changing your lifestyle. And I live in a city, I've got this, I've got that, I've got this. It's just like all the things, all the chatter just kind of comes up. And I think some of that, it's going to require a big shift on the inside. Uh, and then you begin to make the small changes here and there, and you just do a
Yes,
little bit every day, and it's not so hard
yes,
after a while.
exactly. It's a process,
Yeah.
and you want to initiate the process. And a lot of people actually already have initiated the process. When the moment you start thinking of, oh, maybe I could change the way I eat, I could
Mm.
eat better. Maybe I could change the way I exercise. I could do some exercise to begin with, or I can do better exercise, etc. So when uh, you start considering those changes, it's not just for the sake of changing. Change for the sake of change is unimportant. What
Right.
we're looking for, what we are all looking for, is an improved experience of our life and of
Yes.
who we are. When we sleep better, we feel better. When we think better, we feel better. When we move better and move more, we feel better. When we eat better, we feel better. When we feel better, we feel better, etc. So
Right.
that's the goal. The goal is, do you want to feel better? You want to maybe also to do better, or um, think better, or yes, but you want a good, healthy, pleasant, enjoyable experience of you. What
Mm.
we call our life is ourselves, is the experience of being alive. This is not a grand philosophy, it's a very extremely basic fact of life. We are alive and we want that experience to be good.
Mm.
The way we live our life is going to impact that experience in a positive or in a negative way.
Mm.
So what we're doing is looking at the ways that maybe without our awareness, we've been doing things that are detrimental to us.
Mm-hmm.
And when we change those, then it becomes beneficial.
Agree.
So same amount of time, same amount of energy, better result, more pleasant. That's a very good deal. It's worth the attention, it's worth the efforts, to begin with, it's worth the consideration.
Agree. Well, this has been really lovely. And I definitely look forward to connecting with you in the future and having more of these conversations. We'll probably have to do another full
My
conversation
pleasure.
just on
Sure.
breath because
Okay, let's do
yeah,
that next
yeah,
time. We'll talk about the breath, the non-breath,
yes.
and the mind and the meditation, and in what way that can help us live that better life that we want.
Yeah, I can't wait. Wonderful. Well, we'll get that on the books and everyone make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that future conversation. And Erwin, thank you so much for
Thank you,
spending the
sir.
time to be here today.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you so much for listening to the Evolving Wellness Podcast. Just a quick little reminder, this is not medical advice nor meant to be taken as a substitute for working one-on-one with a healthcare practitioner. And if you enjoy the show, please head on over to Apple or Spotify to leave the show up to a 5-star review. If you're over on YouTube, please leave us a like, leave us a comment. I really appreciate you for being here, for listening to the show, and your support means the world to me as I continue to try to pull guests from around the world to bring you informative content to empower you to make decisions about your own health. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.